Palace gates locked, phones silenced, a royal summons issued without warning. Insiders confirm King Charles called an emergency meeting just moments ago without his wife Camilla, without advisors. The topic? A long-guarded royal heirloom. The recipient? Catherine, Princess of Wales. The timing couldn't be more suspicious. Something has shifted in the royal power game, and it's about to change everything. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. For a king whose every move is measured in centuries of tradition, an unscheduled meeting at this hour was nothing short of unprecedented. According to senior sources within the palace, King Charles abandoned a diplomatic luncheon with foreign envoys mid-course, retreating to his private chambers in Clarence House. What followed was the arrival of only 4 carefully chosen royals, no aides, no press secretaries, not even a single note-taker. And most notably, no Camilla. The Queen Consort, who has shared the king's inner circle for decades, was reportedly informed only after the meeting had concluded. Palace staff described her reaction as stunned and visibly rattled. But what exactly was discussed? Leaks from inside suggest only one item dominated the agenda: the release of a highly guarded royal heirloom, sealed away since the early 1982. Described as a symbol of profound power and tradition, this piece had not seen the light of day in decades and was previously believed to be untouchable, even for Diana. The idea that it would now be offered to Catherine sent shockwaves through the royal apparatus. Just minutes after the meeting ended, a black vehicle was dispatched quietly to Kensington Palace. Catherine was reportedly brought in for a separate, private audience with the king. No William, no aides, no Camilla. The gesture broke every known protocol, raising even more questions about urgency and intention. Why now? Why in this way? Royal correspondents say the answer lies not only in Charles's evolving relationship with his daughter-in-law, but in an escalating internal crisis, one that threatens to split the monarchy's heart in two. The heirloom is no mere accessory. It represents a decision, a message, a shift. And those who were excluded from the conversation are already calculating what it means for their own future at court. But to understand why this moment is so seismic, we must uncover the dark and emotional history surrounding the heirloom itself and why it was kept hidden for decades. Kept under lock and key, this particular royal jewel has never been worn in public since the early 1982. Whispers call it the Queenmaker, a piece said to carry not only history but heartbreak. Diana once refused it. Camilla never touched it. So why now? And why Catherine? The story of this heirloom doesn't begin with Charles, nor with Elizabeth. It stretches back to Queen Mary, who wore it only once, on the day Edward VIII gave up the crown for love. In the decades since, it has lingered in the shadows of the monarchy, whispered about in corridors but rarely acknowledged in public. Its reputation is chilling. Wherever the jewel went, instability followed. It is said to have been worn by those on the cusp of power and removed shortly before their fall. It resurfaced only briefly when Diana was offered the piece ahead of her marriage to Prince Charles. According to former aides, she declined, allegedly calling it cursed with expectation, sensing the weight it carried was far more symbolic than glamorous. From that day forward, Queen Elizabeth reportedly kept the piece sealed away, hidden beneath layers of velvet in a private vault. It wasn't passed to Camilla not because of oversight, but due to quiet superstition. Palace staff believed it brought not unity, but division. Even those closest to the late Queen said she viewed the jewel as a final measure, reserved for only one woman worthy or strong enough to wear it. So why now? Why has King Charles chosen this precise moment to bring it back into the light and place it in Catherine's hands? Some believe it's a desperate attempt to shore up the monarchy's future amid growing public doubt. Others whisper it's a message to Camilla that her influence, while accepted, is no longer absolute. Senior courtiers are said to be rattled. One reportedly remarked, "That heirloom isn't gifted. It's assigned. And when it is, someone always pays the price." The heirloom has never been just a necklace or a brooch. It's a test, a symbol of inheritance, not just in blood, but in burden. And by handing it to Catherine now, Charles has chosen his queen not in title, but in spirit. Those who understand the language of the crown know this is no ordinary gesture, it's a public reckoning wrapped in royal tradition. And if the heirloom itself is steeped in legend, the circumstances under which it's being offered now are nothing short of explosive. The world sees grace, poise, and perfection. But behind the palace walls, Catherine has been under immense personal pressure. From health whispers to power struggles with Camilla, the cracks have deepened in silence. Now, this heirloom may not be a reward but a test. For months, questions have quietly surrounded Catherine's conspicuous absences. Public appearances were scaled back. Private engagements were cancelled. Official explanations pointed to scheduling, rest, or family focus, but insiders knew better. Beneath the polished exterior, the Princess of Wales has been carrying more than the public could ever see. With William stepping deeper into statecraft and assuming more of the crown's forward-facing responsibility, Catherine has been left to navigate a far more delicate battlefield, one shaped not by diplomacy, but by proximity to power. And at the heart of that power struggle stands Camilla. Sources from within the palace describe an increasingly strained dynamic between the two women, particularly over issues of visibility, patronage, and representation. Behind closed doors, aides have allegedly clashed over seating arrangements, media narratives, and who receives precedence at high-profile events. The pressure hasn't been one of open warfare, but of quiet, grinding erosion, an atmosphere where every glance, every schedule change, carries political undertones. When Charles summoned Catherine for the private audience and presented the heirloom, many believed it to be a gesture of compassion, an attempt to recognize her unwavering dignity, but others believe it was far more calculated. By placing this symbol of legacy in Catherine's hands, the king may have been issuing a direct statement. Catherine is not merely the wife of the future king, she is the future. And in doing so, he's forced her into a spotlight she never asked for, at a time she may not have been ready to step into it. Those closest to Catherine say she accepted the gesture with humility, but also with hesitation, not because she doubts her place, but because she understands the cost. The heirloom, rich in symbolism and shadow, carries with it an undeniable risk. To wear it is to challenge Camilla's presence. To accept it is to become something more than consort, it is to become contender. Catherine has never chased power, but now power has arrived uninvited, wrapped in velvet and buried in legacy. The question is no longer whether she will rise, but whether she can do so without losing the quiet strength that made her the monarchy's greatest hope. But while Catherine hesitates, the real drama brews elsewhere as Camilla discovers the truth about the emergency meeting. Denied access, shut out of the room. Camilla, once the power behind the king, is reportedly livid after learning the heirloom was granted without her knowledge. Royal aides describe shouting behind closed doors and one chilling warning that could reshape the monarchy's future. The Queen Consort did not receive a call. She was not consulted. She was not present. Instead, it was a junior aide who delivered the news timidly, hesitantly, after the meeting had already concluded. Camilla, who had built her influence piece by piece over 2 decades, was blindsided. And that silence from her husband wasn't just a misstep, it was, in her eyes, betrayal. Witnesses describe the confrontation that followed as volcanic. Doors closed, voices raised, and for the first time in years, Camilla's mask reportedly cracked. According to a palace insider, she accused Charles of undermining her position, of bowing to the court of public sympathy, and of handing the crown's emotional legacy to Catherine on a silver platter. The heirloom, in Camilla's view, wasn't a token, it was a declaration. One that signaled she was no longer the queen in waiting, but a placeholder, eclipsed by the shadow of a younger, more beloved future queen. Within hours, the palace released a muted, carefully worded statement, one that acknowledged the king's meeting, but offered no explanation, no names, and most notably, no mention of Catherine. The phrasing was diplomatic, but behind the scenes, it reeked of panic. Advisors scrambled to reassure Camilla's allies, even as rumors swirled that she had called the king's decision a quiet coup. an orchestrated move to elevate Catherine and sideline her influence. And perhaps most ominous of all was Camilla's alleged vow to take necessary steps to restore balance. The implications of those words were left deliberately vague. But inside the palace, everyone knew exactly what they meant. This wasn't just a conflict over a duel, it was a collision of power, legacy, and identity. Camilla had survived scandal, scrutiny, and silence to claim her place. She would not surrender it easily. And now, with trust fractured and battle lines drawn, the monarchy teetered on the edge of an internal reckoning. The heirloom had done more than reopen old wounds, it had created new ones. And the next move would not come from Charles or Camilla. It would come from William. Yet while the palace scrambles to contain the fallout, William makes a surprising move that only deepens the royal divide. He didn't speak publicly, but his actions roared. Hours after the heirloom story leaked, Prince William was seen leaving Kensington with Catherine, hand in hand. No statement, no smiles, just unity. And insiders confirm, he's not just supporting her, he's backing the crown she's stepping into. From the very beginning, William knew what the heirloom meant. He was reportedly one of the few people informed by King Charles before the emergency meeting took place. Not consulted, but notified. And while he didn't object, he also didn't intervene, because William understood that this was no ordinary gesture from his father. It was a shift, a realignment, and one the monarchy had long delayed. The tension between William and Camilla had been simmering beneath the surface for years, rarely acknowledged but never absent. Behind the polished formalities, there were quiet clashes about roles, influence, and the face the monarchy should present to the world. Now, with Charles bypassing Camilla to elevate Catherine, William saw an opportunity to assert what many in the palace have called his unspoken vision. Sources close to the prince claim he once warned Charles in private. If the crown wants to survive, it needs the people's queen. That queen, in William's mind, was never Camilla. And now, with the symbolic torch finally passed through the heirloom, William took his stand not with a speech, not with a press release, but with a gesture. Walking beside Catherine, shielded from the cameras yet fully visible, he made it clear that he saw her not only as his wife, but as the monarchy's future heartbeat. His endorsement was silent, but unmistakable. The response from Clarence House was instant and alarmed. Camilla's allies described the move as calculated, calling it a direct challenge to the Queen Consort's standing. William, however, refused any invitation to meet or discuss the optics. He declined a formal gathering intended to soothe tensions and reportedly instructed his own team to avoid engagement with Camilla's media strategy. This wasn't rebellion, it was realignment. William was planting a flag. And for a monarchy built on symbolism, his quiet but commanding loyalty to Catherine sent shockwaves through every royal corridor. He was no longer the heir waiting, he was the architect shaping what comes next. And while the Waleses forge ahead, whispers emerge about the symbolism of the heirloom and its hidden royal code. It wasn't Charles, it wasn't even Catherine. According to new claims, Queen Elizabeth herself left behind a handwritten note indicating who should receive the heirloom when the time was right. And that time, it seems, is now. The note had been locked away, tucked inside a sealed box marked with the Queen's private insignia, discovered only after her passing. It wasn't part of her official will. This was something far more intimate. A final instruction, handwritten, in language that felt personal and deliberate. According to a trusted former courtier who saw the contents firsthand, the note was addressed not to the crown, nor to Charles, but to those who would one day carry forward the spirit of duty. It did not reference titles or positions, but named Catherine, directly calling her the bearer of continuity. Those 3 words have shaken the palace to its core. Elizabeth, famously guarded even in her affections, had quietly identified the woman she believed could hold the monarchy's center in turbulent times. And she chose not her daughter, nor her daughter-in-law, but her granddaughter-in-law. What followed the discovery of the note, however, wasn't reverence, it was resistance. Charles allegedly dismissed it at first, believing the moment wasn't right, or perhaps fearing the implications. He knew what such a gesture could ignite. but pressure began to mount. Not only from the document itself, but from William, who reportedly insisted it was not a matter of choice, it was a matter of honoring his grandmother's final wish. Tension boiled behind the scenes. Senior aides argued that unveiling the note would politicize the monarchy, while others warned that ignoring it would be a betrayal of the late Queen's private truth. Ultimately, it was the growing storm around Camilla's reaction and the public's increasing empathy toward Catherine that shifted the balance. The heirloom, once seen as a flashpoint of controversy, was suddenly framed in a different light, as a quiet prophecy coming to pass. The revelation changed everything. Commentators who once urged caution now declared Catherine the rightful recipient of the crown's emotional legacy. Public sentiment swelled. "The Queen saw it all along," read one headline. Catherine was chosen before she even knew it. What had begun as a deeply personal tribute now carried national weight. The monarchy, once thought to be balancing itself on fragile consensus, now found itself tethered to a deeper thread, one stitched by the woman whose reign defined a century. And yet, even Elizabeth's foresight couldn't account for what would come next. But if Elizabeth foresaw Catherine's rise, she may have also predicted the backlash, because the next 48 hours will test everything. Two camps, one crown. Inside the palace, staff are reportedly divided. Kensington versus Clarence House. Loyalty versus tradition. The heirloom, meant to unite, has exposed deep fractures in the monarchy's foundation, and now, even Charles can't ignore the consequences. The fallout began not in the press, but in the corridors of power. Two senior aides, both long-time fixtures of the royal household, quietly handed in their resignations. Their reasons were clear. The handling of the heirloom had turned a symbolic gesture into a full-blown institutional crisis. One aide described the situation as unsustainable, citing a loss of trust and mounting factionalism within the very structure meant to preserve unity. At Kensington Palace, staff have reportedly drawn their own line. In an unprecedented move, several members of Catherine's core team refused to coordinate joint appearances with Camilla's office. What began as scheduling delays evolved into formal avoidance, a passive protest against what they see as years of sidelining finally reaching a breaking point. Meanwhile, at Clarence House, there's panic behind the curtains. Camilla's advisors are said to be lobbying the king privately, urging him to delay any public presentation of the heirloom, warning that Catherine's rapid ascent risks alienating more traditional elements of the monarchy's base. But the king's indecision has only added fuel to the fire. As Charles wavers between his loyalty to Camilla and the weight of his late mother's written wishes, the public grows restless. Petitions surface overnight, with tens of thousands signing in support of Catherine being named Queen Consort. In law, no ambiguity, no transition period, just a clear succession of spirit and symbolism. And the situation turns even more precarious as parliamentarians begin weighing in. Some call it a family matter. Others say the public has a right to know how succession symbols are distributed, particularly when they influence public perception and funding. It's no longer just about a jewel. It's about the soul of the monarchy and who holds it moving forward. Charles, cornered by tension from both ends, calls an emergency mediation behind palace doors. One-on-one meetings with William, with Camilla, with Catherine, but the outcome remains clouded in silence. What is clear, though, is this: neither side is backing down. One clings to legacy forged through resilience, the other to public affection earned through grace. And the king, caught between them, watches as the very institution he inherited begins to tear at its seams. But while politics rage, Catherine finally steps forward, not with jewels, but with words. No fanfare, no script. Catherine addresses a small crowd during a charity event and delivers a single line that changes everything. "This isn't about a crown. It's about a promise I made." Suddenly, the heirloom means more than power, it means legacy. There were no reporters invited, no live coverage, just a quiet room filled with community workers, volunteers, and survivors, people far removed from the headlines but not from the values that Catherine has spent years quietly upholding. And yet, as soon as she stepped up to the podium, the weight in her voice betrayed the storm raging behind the scenes. Her brief remarks weren't a prepared statement, they were a release. With emotion held in check but undeniably present, she spoke of commitment, not crowns, of people, not power. Sometimes, she said, what we carry is not just our name, but the expectations, the memory, and the hope of those who came before us. It was the first time she had spoken publicly since the heirloom was handed to her, and the world knew it wasn't a coincidence. When she referenced Queen Elizabeth directly, saying, "She taught me that tradition isn't what you inherit, it's what you protect," the room fell silent. It was a subtle confirmation of the rumours surrounding the late Queen's handwritten note, and in that moment, the mystery turned into meaning. Catherine didn't need to defend the heirloom. She transformed it. From a lightning rod of royal conflict into a symbol of quiet endurance, the public response was immediate and thunderous. Clips of her speech went viral, headlines declared her the modern monarch, and commentators across the spectrum admitted Catherine had won this battle not through strategy, but sincerity. Yet behind closed doors, not everyone was applauding. Camilla, still reeling from her eroded influence, was reportedly livid. Aides described her as furious that Catherine played the victim card perfectly, claiming the speech was designed to paint her as cold and power-hungry. But even Camilla's inner circle couldn't deny the impact. Catherine's final line, delivered softly but with unmistakable force, sealed it. Symbols are not given, they're earned. It was not just a rebuke to her critics, it was a declaration, a line in the sand. She wasn't claiming the crown, she was carrying it forward. And just as the palace began to breathe, thinking the drama had peaked, a final twist emerged, one that no one, not even Catherine, could have predicted. But just when the palace seems ready to stabilize, a final twist ensures the story is far from over. Hours before the heirloom is to be publicly displayed, a royal archivist uncovers a sealed letter from Diana, addressed to her sons. Inside, a haunting message about legacy, love, and the woman she hoped would wear what she could not. The name? Catherine. The clock was ticking down. Final preparations were being made for the heirloom's unprecedented reveal, and tension still clung to the corridors of the palace like a thick fog. Then, in a quiet corner of the royal archives, tucked away in a file marked simply Diana, Personal, a sealed envelope surfaced. Yellowed at the edges, sealed with a wax insignia only a few staff even recognized anymore, it had gone undisturbed for decades. The recipient? To my sons, when the time is right. Inside was a letter, handwritten and unmistakably hers. Diana's words flooding the page with all the love, pain, and foresight that had defined her life. The letter, dated just weeks before her untimely death, carried a tone of urgency and tenderness. In it, she spoke not only as a mother, but as a woman who had survived the cold machinery of the monarchy. She warned them gently, yet clearly, about ambition masquerading as tradition, and urged them to seek out the woman with strength, grace, and heart, not to mirror the crown, but to reshape it. And then, a name. Catherine. William, upon reading it, reportedly stood in silence. For several minutes, no one dared speak. When he finally broke the silence, it was with one sentence. "We have to honor her." The revelation stunned everyone in the room, including King Charles. Sources say he was rendered speechless, his hand frozen mid-motion as he read his late ex-wife's unmistakable handwriting. There was no space for politics, no ground left for denial. Diana had spoken from beyond, and her words echoed louder than any crown ever could. But it was Catherine's response that struck the deepest chord. Moved to tears, she made a quiet decision. Though the world was anticipating a grand unveiling, she chose not to wear the heirloom publicly. Instead, she held it, in private. No photographers, no ceremony, just silence and respect. In that gesture, she proved what the monarchy had failed to grasp for years. True power is never shouted. It's held in moments of quiet strength, And now, the palace finds itself in the eye of a storm that is no longer about jewels or hierarchy, but truth. Diana's truth, Catherine's restraint, William's conviction, and a monarchy facing its deepest reckoning yet. Because sometimes, what binds a family isn't blood or protocol, but promises made in grief and courage, born in silence. The heirloom may have once symbolized power, but after Diana's letter, it symbolizes something far more dangerous: clarity. And as the royal family confronts its past, its present, and the painful weight of its symbols, one truth becomes impossible to deny. Catherine was never just chosen. She was destined. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.